I studied economics at the University of Birmingham, and when I finished, I decided to become an accountant with Ernst & Young in central London. Whilst I was working there, I decided that I wanted to invest for the future and liked the idea of property because it was more tangible than other investments. So I decided to invest in Birmingham, as the prices were a lot cheaper than where I lived in the southeast. My first buy-to-let investment was a 3-bedroom house in Birmingham, which I purchased for £84,000. The reason I decided to invest in this property was because it was in an area where the rental demand was strong and there was development taking place in and around the area, so I felt there would be good capital appreciation in the future. What I realized with property is that you can practice the art of leverage. So when it comes to money, skills, and time, for example, in any other investment, I would need to put in 100% of the initial investment. If I buy a property, then I only need to come up with 25% of the value of the property, plus a deposit for the refurbishment costs, which I can borrow anyway, and depending on what I do to that property, I can further reduce or limit the money I have left in. I was able to leverage skill sets. I use a very knowledgeable broker, a qualified solicitor with many years of conveyancing experience, fully qualified electrician, plumbers, and builders. I'm able to leverage time. Estate agents will know what amenities there are in the area, what's happening in the area, which has allowed me to drastically reduce the amount of time I need to do my research and due diligence. In relation to the house I purchased, the agent told me that there was development taking place in the near future and the rental demand for this area was very strong. What type of property should I buy? A house or flat in an area where there is strong rental demand and prospects of future growth. This will ensure that from a rental perspective, your property will always be in demand, which in turn helps with cash flow. The property you buy will depend on your strategy and how much involvement you want in the management of the property. For example, who you want to let the property to, whether it's a single family, students, working professionals. Single family houses are less work when compared to, say, a house of multiple occupants, otherwise known as a HMO, but the cash flow is less as well. Whether or not you choose to invest in houses or flats will depend on your long-term investment objectives, what investment strategy you decide to follow, where your investment strategy works. I have purchased both houses and flats. I'm in the process of converting houses into flats. I've invested in the Midlands and central London, so I can see both sides of the story. People always say that they don't buy apartments because of the service charge and ground rent, alongside the possibility of major works in the future. What you need to take into account is that a flat is a lot less work when compared to a house. You might receive a major works notification, but in reality, this is no different to you having to do works to your house. It could be argued it's easier with a flat, given there is a managing agent in place who is likely to have a tendering process for the works. Whether you choose to buy a house or a flat in London or in Birmingham, just make sure you add significant amounts of value to minimize the money you leave in, and make sure you buy based on your investment objectives. Where should I buy? The one you choose depends on your risk appetite, how much you want to get involved in the day-to-day. I personally have always purchased in areas I'm familiar with. I purchased property in Birmingham. I wanted to do single lets as I didn't like the idea of managing 5 separate tenants. You can either look for areas close to you, maybe within 20 minutes driving, or you could select an area that you feel would make a good investment area. Location doesn't really matter. What matters is whether or not the area meets your investment objectives. For example, I would not want to spend the same amount of time managing a property next door as one that is 2 hours away. I would not want to be spending more time and effort managing a property next door just because it's next door. As long as you have good reasons as to why you decided to invest in X town, then it doesn't matter. For example, I stopped investing in Birmingham because I started to work in London and decided to start looking there. I couldn't see myself spending my weekends traveling up to Birmingham to view more properties, having spent the week at work. A lot of people living in London, for example, like the idea of investing in the North, Liverpool and Manchester because the property prices are significantly cheaper and therefore the yield on these properties is good. Unless you like driving up to Liverpool or Manchester and are willing to build up your power team there, then it could become painful. What is a buy-to-let mortgage and how does it work? A buy-to-let mortgage is a mortgage you use when you intend to purchase a property to let out. The terms on a buy-to-let mortgage can be 2, 3, 4 and 5 year terms. They usually require you to put down a 25% deposit. They can be either capital and interest or interest only, and most investors tend to go for interest only option, as it means more cash flow and over time the value of the property increases, so in the long run their objective is normally to remortgage the higher value value to repay any existing mortgage or sell the property. What are the property buying costs? Valuation fee. Some buy-to-let lenders offer a free valuation as an incentive. Legal fees. You normally need 20 to 25% of the value of the property. Stamp duty is a land tax that you pay to the government. All you need to do is use an online calculator to work out how much the stamp duty is due. You will need the purchase price of the property, when you plan to complete, and tick that the property will be a buy-to-let or second home. I found the Knight Frank stamp duty calculator really easy to use. When do I have to pay over the stamp duty? You usually have to pay 14 days from completion, but don't worry, your solicitor usually takes care of this and will request your funds as part of the completion process. Make sure you get 3 quotes using a costed schedule of works so that you can compare the quotes you get back are like for like. Make sure you factor in the cost in your financial analysis. What are the property running costs? Annual buildings insurance, maybe contents insurance if you decide to take that out, a gas safety certificate if you've got gas in the building, and an electrical inspection condition report every 5 years. Monthly costs, service charge if you buy a flat, mortgage payments, potential repairs and maintenance. Gross yield. The gross yield is the yearly rent divided by the value of the property. In this example, you're seeing the rent is £1,850 per calendar month. The rent per annum is £22,200. The value is a 2-bedroom apartment worth £320,000. So the gross yield is 6.93%. The gross yield is a good indicator to compare different projects in the same area as you are comparing like with like. The gross yield can actually be quite misleading in the sense that it doesn't take into account all costs in managing that property. The net after all costs divided by the value of the property. Rent less mortgage, less management, less maintenance. The rent per calendar month is £1,850. The mortgage per calendar month is £853. The service charge is £108. Maintenance of £185. Management of £185. Which means that the net yield for this particular property is 1.94%. The net yield seems low, but this property is in London, and we have also budgeted maintenance at 10% of the rent and management costs at 10% of the rent. The net yield gives you a more accurate appraisal of the actual return you are earning. The reason all agents talk about gross yield is that the headline figures sound good, but also it's difficult to know the financing costs if being purchased by an investor using a buy-to-let mortgage. Cash flow. This is simply the rent received less all expenses you've incurred, for example. Rent less mortgage, management fees, service charge, if any repairs and maintenance. This is the actual cash the property is generating on a monthly basis. For example, if the rent was £1,850 per calendar month, the mortgage payment was £853, the service charge was £108, maintenance of £185, management of £185, it would result in a cash flow per calendar month of £517. This is a newly refurbished apartment, so we wouldn't expect many maintenance issues. And we also manage the apartment ourselves, so again, the cost is quite high here. The return on investment is simply the annual profit income minus all your expenses divided by the cash left in. With buy-to-lets, the correct metric to use is cash left in, because the initial money we've invested is reduced upon us refinancing the property onto a buy-to-let mortgage once we have added significant amounts of value, and therefore leaving in a lot less cash than when we first started. What we are interested in at the final point is the return on the money left in. The cash flow per annum for this particular project was £6,215. The money left in was £36,735, which meant a return on investment of 16.91%. I often get asked, what should I aim for or look for in terms of an ROI? It's really difficult to answer this question, as a lot of the time in property investment, it depends on your goals and what you're trying to achieve. The metrics above might not appeal to someone outside of London, as the yield, cash flow and money left in don't seem attractive. However, if you compare this to the normal buy-to-let investor in London, then these returns suddenly seem very appealing. For example, we left in £36,000, whereas a normal buy-to-let investor would have left in over £100,000. One of the considerations that people look at is where else they are investing their money and compare the returns to, say, saving and current account. And if the return they are earning is higher, then it makes sense to diversify your risk and portfolio. We don't look at these financial metrics in isolation, but together with other non-financial metrics, such as the prospects of capital appreciation in the area, rental levels, demand. For example, this apartment was 7 minutes walk from Brixton Underground Station and rental demand was also very high. This helps us to build up an overall picture of the investment, as otherwise the numbers might look great but the area might not be great in terms of prospects, in terms of capital appreciation. Rental levels and demand might also be on the decline. What is capital appreciation? Capital appreciation is the growth in the value of the property. This happens over time, and in the UK, usually every 10 years, property prices double. When you have a property that you have owned for a number of years, then you have the option of selling it in order to realize some of that gain or refinancing it. If you decide to refinance it, given the uplift in value, then the proceeds can be paid as a dividend or reinvested in the business to buy another property. If you could go back when you first started investing, knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently? I developed the B4R model. If I went back, I would have implemented this on every single property I'd purchased. For example, in Birmingham, instead of buying a 3-bedroom house to rent out because they were cheap and had good yields, I would have purchased 2-bedroom houses with an upstairs bathroom and converted them into 3-bedroom houses by moving the bathroom downstairs and changing the bathroom to a bedroom. I would have done all these projects on a bridge and then refinanced onto a buy-to-let mortgage. And I would have been earning a significant return on my investment, as I would have minimized the money left in on these projects. This graph shows my journey as a traditional investor and now as someone using the B4R model I developed. As you can see, from 2010 to 2015, the growth of my portfolio was relatively slow, but since December 2018 to October 21, it's been supercharged, and that's mainly as a result of the B4R model. I saw this quote from Robin Sharma, which is so true about hindsight, and it goes something like this. The real trick in life is to turn hindsight into foresight that reveals insight. How powerful. I developed the B4R model by looking at what I had been doing in the past, and I realized I was leaving a lot of money on the table. And what I really needed to do was add significant amounts of value to my projects, which I have been doing since 2019, which has supercharged my results. I hope my journey helps you to look at projects that add significant amounts of value that help you to supercharge your investments.